Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something a bit different. We're not chasing the latest tech buzzword. Instead, we're asking, well, a really interesting question, I think. What happens when Peter Drucker's wisdom, the management guru, meets the day-to-day reality of software quality assurance?
Right. It's like bridging two worlds almost.
Exactly. And if you're listening and you care about building genuinely solid software, especially with how fast things move now, CI/CD, constant updates.
Oh, yeah, the pace is relentless.
Then this deep dive is definitely for you. That sheer speed, it demands we look at things differently, doesn't it?
It really does. You need some solid ground.
And that's where Drucker's, well, timeless principles might just come in. So our mission today, take 10 of his most powerful quotes and re-engineer them, see if we can turn them into real actionable insights for boosting your QA organization's impact.
Yeah, what's really fascinating here is taking these like fundamental management truths and seeing how they land, or maybe even how they challenge a field like QA, which is just so dynamic.
Good point.
Drucker's stuff has proven its worth all over the place, so looking at it here, it could unlock some really potent ways of thinking about quality.
Okay, let's jump right in. First quote. Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. Simple, but profound.
Classic.
So when we talk management in QA, what does that actually look like on the ground? For me, it's things like writing those perfect test cases.
Meticulous execution.
Yeah, chasing that 100% execution rate, optimizing the pipelines, keeping the machine running smoothly.
That's a perfect picture of QA management. It's all about process efficiency, right? Running the established procedures as well as possible.
Right.
But then leadership in QA, that's taking a step back. It asks the bigger question. Are all those efficient processes, all those perfectly run tests, are they actually focused on what matters, to the business, to the users? Are we protecting the really critical journeys?
Okay. So leadership is more strategic then. If we want to lead in QA, how do we get beyond just efficient execution? How do we pinpoint and focus on those right things?
Well, that immediately brings up prioritization, doesn't it? Because you can't test everything, not with the resources we have.
True.
So a key insight here, I think, is regular structured collaboration, like actually setting aside time for it.
Okay.
Maybe think about doing a quarterly workshop. Call it a risk impact matrix workshop, something like that. And crucially, bring in product and support teams.
Get those different perspectives.
Exactly. Get everyone together to figure out, okay, what are the top, say, 10 critical scenarios? Where would failure really hurt us the most?
Right, the high impact stuff.
And that list, that becomes your North Star for QA leadership. It tells you where to invest your best automation efforts, your most rigorous testing.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's about aiming your QA firepower strategically, where it counts most.
Precisely.
Okay, moving on. Second Drucker quote. The best way to predict the future is to create it. Sounds a bit philosophical, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit.
But how can we apply that to getting proactive about quality in these super fast software cycles?
Well, at its core, it's about flipping the script, right? Moving from just reacting to problems to actually anticipating them.
Okay.
So instead of waiting for the code to be written and then finding the bugs, proactive quality means embedding quality thinking, embedding feedback loops way earlier, like right back in the design and architecture phases.
Building it in, not bolting it on.
Exactly. You create the quality future you want by addressing potential issues before they're even coded.
So you're kind of heading off problems at the pass. Could you give us a concrete example, something tangible for this shift left idea?
Sure. Think about APIs, how services talk to each other. A really common pain point is when one service changes its API and, whoops, breaks things for everyone using it.
Been there, seen that.
Right. So a proactive approach is to use contract tests. Introduce them early, maybe in the build pipeline. These tests basically define the agreement, the contract, between the API and its consumers.
Okay, like a formal agreement.
Sort of. And if the API provider makes a change that violates that contract, boom, the build fails immediately.
Stops it right there.
Stops it before those breaking changes can ripple out and cause chaos downstream. You've created a future where that breakage is less likely.
That's pretty smart, building resilience in early. So what's the actionable takeaway here? How do we create our quality future?
Well, to take it a step further, think about predicting issues in the live environment. Consider using canary environments strategically.
Canary releases, yeah.
But populate them with synthetic traffic simulated user activity that really mimics how real people use your app.
Okay, realistic simulation.
This lets you roll out a new version to just a small slice of a production-like setup, watch how it behaves under realistic load, and catch regressions or performance hits before they impact everyone.
You're essentially getting a controlled sneak peek into the future.
Exactly, creating a controlled glimpse to validate things.
Love it. Okay. Next up, Drucker's famous line, "What gets measured gets managed." This feels like it was written for QA, doesn't it?
It really does. We rely so much on data.
So what are the vital signs, the key metrics a modern QA team should really be tracking?
Oh, there are a few crucial ones. Defect escape rate, that's basically how many bugs slip through your net and get found in production. That's a big one for overall effectiveness.
Right. Tells you how good the net is.
Then there's the flaky test ratio, the percentage of automated tests that fail randomly even when nothing's changed.
Flaky tests, the bane of automation.
They really undermine trust, don't they? So you need to watch that ratio. And third, mean time to detect, or MTTD. How fast can you spot and flag a broken build? That shows your responsiveness.
Okay, defect escape, flaky ratio, MTTD, got it. But it's not just about collecting numbers in a spreadsheet, is it?
Absolutely not.
How do we make sure these metrics actually, drive improvement, manage things better? What's the real insight?
The real power comes from transparency and using the data to start conversations. So the actionable insight. Make these metrics visible. Really visible.
Like dashboards.
Yeah, or maybe a weekly quality scorecard posted in your team chat somewhere everyone sees it. Show the trends. Is defect escape going up or down? Are flaky tests getting worse?
So everyone sees the picture.
Exactly. It gives you a clear view of progress. It highlights the problem spots needing attention, and it helps build a data-informed culture around quality improvement. It's not about blame. It's about learning.
Using data for good, not evil. Okay, this next Drucker quote, it really hits home for me. There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all.
Oof. Yeah, that one stings sometimes.
Where do we see this in QA? Teams working really hard, really efficiently, but on stuff that maybe doesn't matter that much.
I think a classic example is getting bogged down maintaining massive, old, brittle, end-to-end UI test suites.
The giant regression pack.
Right. Teams pour hours into making them run efficiently, fixing the constant random failures, adding more coverage. But sometimes those tests just aren't giving much bang for the buck anymore.
Why is that?
Well, they can be super slow to run, they break easily with tiny UI tweaks, and often they aren't even the best way to catch the critical bugs hiding deeper down.
You mentioned a fintech team that tackled this.
Yeah, great example. They had this full regression suite that took, get this, 3 hours to run.
Wow. That's a huge bottleneck.
Massive. Delayed feedback slowed everything down. So they took a hard look. They actually cut out 40% of their flakiest UI tests, just got rid of them.
Brave move.
It was. And they replaced them strategically with faster, more reliable API-level tests that targeted the same risks.
And the result?
Cut their suite runtime down to 30 minutes. 30. Huge win for feedback loops, agility, everything.
That's incredible. So the lesson is, be ruthless about evaluating if your tests are still useful. Don't just maintain them because they exist.
Exactly. Be willing to prune. Which leads to the actionable insight. Make it a habit. Maybe hold a regular test trim session, every sprint perhaps. Get the team together, look at the tests, and ask, which ones haven't caught a real bug in the last, say, 3 releases? Flag those. Maybe they need to go.
A bit like gardening for your test suite. Pruning the dead wood.
Good analogy, yeah.
Okay, next commandment, and it's a big one. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. How does the vibe, the culture in a development team impact QA?
Oh, hugely. It underlines the fact that you can have the best QA strategy on paper, the fanciest tools, the most detailed processes.
Yeah.
But if the broader team culture doesn't genuinely value quality, if it's seen as just QA's job, then that strategy won't really succeed.
So QA can't just be an island.
No way. It works best when quality is a shared responsibility. When developers, product managers, ops folks, everyone feels ownership.
Okay, so how do you build that kind of culture?
Yeah.
You can't just decree it, right? Any grassroots ideas?
Definitely not top-down. It needs to grow organically. One little idea, cultural hack if you like, is a daily quality huddle.
Quality huddle.
Yeah, super short meeting, maybe 5 minutes. Everyone on the team, devs, product, QA, whoever shares just one tiny idea for improving quality, no idea too small.
Keeps it constantly on the radar.
Exactly. It makes quality a daily shared conversation, not just a phase gate.
I like that. Simple and potentially powerful. And the key actionable insight for nurturing this culture.
Make a point of publicly celebrating quality wins that come from outside the QA team.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, if a developer catches a tricky bug early, shout it out. If a PM spots a usability flaw, recognize it. If ops flags a performance dip, praise them.
Reinforces that it's everyone's game.
Precisely. Shows that contributions to quality are valued no matter who makes them. It breaks down those silos.
Makes sense. Okay, shifting gears slightly. Drucker made this crucial distinction. Efficiency is doing better what is already being done. Effectiveness is deciding what to do at all.
Another really important one for QA.
How does this play out in testing? Efficiency versus effectiveness.
Okay, so efficiency in testing might be, say, optimizing your automation scripts so your regression suite runs 10% faster. You're doing the same thing, just better, faster.
Okay, that's efficiency.
Right. But effectiveness asks, is that regression suite even testing the right things anymore? Does it cover our biggest risks? Does it align with what the business actually cares about now?
Ah, so you could be super efficient at running tests that don't really matter.
Exactly. All that efficiency is wasted if the tests themselves aren't effective in finding important problems or protecting key user experiences. Effectiveness is about choosing what to test in the first place.
So it's about strategic focus. Again, aiming your efforts where it'll have the biggest impact on users and the business.
Precisely. Think about a retail platform. They might have tons of features, but the checkout flow, that's probably where the money is made, right?
Absolutely critical.
So an effective testing strategy would hammer that checkout flow. Deep testing, cross-browser, different devices, really focus the resources there, maybe even at the expense of less testing on some peripheral, less critical feature.
Prioritizing the crown jewels.
That's a good way to put it. That focus delivers the real value, protects the revenue.
And the actionable insight. How do we keep checking if we're being effective, not just efficient?
You need to build in moments for reflection. Maybe conduct regular effectiveness reviews of your test suites.
Oh, well.
Quarterly might be a good cadence. Get the team together and really challenge your assumptions. Ask, do these tests still map to our current business risks? Are we testing what matters most today? Is this suite still effective?
Constant reevaluation.
Yeah, it has to be ongoing to stay effective.
Okay, Drucker also had this sharp observation. So much of what we call management consists in making it difficult for people to work.
Hey, yeah, sometimes feels true, doesn't it?
How can management, maybe inadvertently, put roadblocks in the way of QA teams just trying to get their work done?
Oh, lots of ways. It could be like really bureaucratic processes just to get a test environment set up.
Ugh, environment delays.
Or super complicated steps for getting realistic test data. Or maybe developers aren't really empowered to dig into test failures themselves. They always have to hand it off to QA.
Creates friction, slows things down.
Exactly. All these unnecessary hurdles add up, create drag, and frustrate people.
So the goal is to spot these friction points and smooth them out.
Absolutely. Find ways to make the easy things easy. For instance, a practical tooling tip. Provide reusable, containerized test harnesses, maybe using Docker.
Okay, how does that help?
It lets anyone on the team, developers included, quickly spin up a clean, production-like test environment on their own machine in minutes. No complex requests, no waiting for shared resources.
Removes a major bottleneck and empowers developers.
Big time. It lowers the barrier to testing and debugging significantly.
Sounds like a huge win. What's the broader actionable insight here beyond just tooling?
Take the time to actually map out your team's entire test workflow. Like draw it out from code check-in all the way to the final sign-off.
Visualize the whole process.
Yeah, and pinpoint every handoff, every approval step, every place where delays usually happen. Then make a commitment as a team. We're going to eliminate at least one of these bottlenecks or unnecessary steps every month.
Continuous improvement of the workflow itself.
Exactly. Small, consistent steps to remove friction can make a massive difference over time to speed and morale.
Okay, next quote tackles something common in tech. People in any organization are always attached to the obsolete, the things that should have worked but did not.
The legacy stuff.
Yeah, this feels very relevant to old test code gathering dust in our repositories.
Oh, totally. So many teams have this technical debt in their test suites.
Yeah.
Old, brittle tests.
What makes them brittle?
They fail for reasons that have nothing to do with the actual application. Maybe a locator changed, maybe some test data is stale, they're slow, they don't really test current risks anymore.
But people don't delete them.
Often not, maybe because someone spent ages writing them initially, or there's this vague fear that, oh, maybe it's still catching something important, even if no one knows what.
The sunk cost fallacy bites again.
Definitely. And this test debt, it eats up pipeline time. It makes people distrust the automation results. It's a real drag.
So how do we break that attachment? How do we get comfortable retiring obsolete tests?
Well, one useful approach, maybe a psychology hack, is to pair up. If the original author is still around, grab them. If not, find someone who understands the history.
Okay, review it together.
Yeah. And ask the hard questions. What was this test originally trying to prevent? Is that still a real risk today? Is this test still the best way to check for it?
Get back to the original intent.
Right. And if the risk is gone or the test is no longer effective, then you have a solid, logical reason to archive it or delete it. Doing it collaboratively often makes it easier to let go of that emotional attachment.
That makes sense. Removes the fear factor a bit and the actionable insight to make this a regular thing, like QA hygiene.
Make deleting old tests as important and visible as writing new ones.
How?
Track it. In your release notes or team metrics, alongside new tests added, include a metric for tests retired.
Value the pruning.
Exactly. Celebrate it. Show that cleaning up the old stuff is a positive contribution to keeping the test suite healthy, maintainable, and efficient.
Creates the right incentive. Okay, penultimate quote. Number 9, Drucker reminds us. Plans are only good intentions unless they immediately degenerate into hard work.
He wasn't afraid to be blunt, was he?
No. And this feels so true for those ambitious QA plans we sometimes create.
Oh, yeah. You can have the most amazing QA strategy document full of great ideas for coverage, automation, performance testing.
The perfect plan.
But if those grand goals don't get broken down into actual concrete tasks that people work on, they just stay as nice ideas on a page. Good intentions.
So how do we bridge that gap between the strategic plan and the day-to-day reality of the sprint?
This is where Agile principles really help QA. You need to translate those high-level goals like improve API test coverage to 90% into sprint-sized chunks.
Make them actionable.
Exactly. So that big goal becomes specific tasks like write postman tests for the order's endpoint 3 story points, or set up basic load test for login 2 points.
Small, manageable pieces.
Tangible, assignable, trackable pieces that fit right into your normal development workflow.
And the actionable insight to make sure these plans actually happen. Turn intentions into work.
Use your existing project management tools, Jira, Trello, whatever you use for QA work too. Don't just track dev stories.
Put QA tasks on the board.
Absolutely. Create tasks for writing automation, for doing exploratory testing, for setting up performance tests. Link them back to the bigger strategic goals if you can.
Makes it visible, accountable.
Totally. Gives everyone end-to-end visibility of all the work going into quality, not just the feature development. Fosters that shared accountability.
Okay, last one. Number 10. Drucker gets into communication nuances. The most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said.
That's a deep one.
What does that mean for a QA person working on complex software today? What aren't we hearing?
Well, in QA, a green build isn't always the whole story, is it?
Definitely not.
A successful deployment doesn't automatically mean everything's perfect. There can be subtle signals, things not being said by the system or the process.
Like what?
Like tests that were skipped because they're flaky. Or edge cases that nobody really tested properly, or maybe alerts that got muted ages ago because they were too noisy, but now they might be hiding a real issue.
The silent problems.
Exactly. It's about developing an ear or an eye for those unspoken warnings, reading between the lines of the test results.
So, being a bit of a detective, looking beyond the green check mark for hidden clues.
That's a great way to put it. You have to be a bit forensic sometimes. A practical thing you can do, a diagnostics drill, is to regularly audit your build logs.
Dig into the logs.
Yeah. Look for suppressed warnings. Look for tests that suddenly run much faster or slower than usual. Look for tests that are consistently skipped. Ask why.
Investigate the anomalies.
And check your alerting setup, too. Are potentially important alerts being silenced? These little quiet spots can sometimes point to much bigger problems underneath.
That's really insightful. Looking for the absence of noise as much as the noise itself. What's the final actionable insight here? How do we get better at hearing the silence?
Maybe try running a monthly silence report.
A silence report? What's that?
It's a report that specifically flags tests in your suite that have had 0 runs or maybe 0 failures over a decent period like the last few releases.
Why would that be bad? No failures? Sounds good.
Sometimes. But a test that never runs or never fails, well, it could mean the feature it tests is actually broken. but the test itself isn't working properly or isn't being triggered, so it's not catching the failure.
Ah, the silence is masking a problem.
It could be. That inactivity pattern is sometimes a significant indicator that something's wrong, either with the test or the underlying feature. It warrants investigation.
Wow. Okay, this has been genuinely enlightening. Taking Drucker's, foundational management ideas and seeing how directly they apply, how relevant they are to modern QA.
It really is striking, isn't it? These principles about leadership, being proactive, using measurement, focusing on culture, they're not just abstract concepts. They translate into very practical guidance for QA teams.
Absolutely. We've seen how they map to specific actions, things teams can actually start doing differently tomorrow to be more effective, more impactful.
Yeah, moving beyond just test execution to really strategic quality leadership.
Right. And I think the big takeaway for you listening is that quality isn't just a step in a pipeline or a checklist. It's really about having focused priorities, building that shared responsibility across the team, and maybe crucially, being willing to stop doing things that don't add value.
That ruthless prioritization again.
Exactly. So if this deep dive sparks some ideas, definitely share these insights with your team, especially anyone in a QA lead role.
Because as we just discussed, in QA, silence isn't always golden.
Sometimes it's a bug hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Stay sharp.
Okay.
Curious. This has been The Deep Dive.